Hello and welcome. I'm Vanessa Roberts, and this is the Power of Technology series on Federal News Network. Today, we bring you the first in a series of conversations that will dig deep into current issues and how technology is reshaping government to address them. Our guest, Tony Celesti, Executive Director and General Manager for Public Sector at InfraMicro, and Cameron Sherry, Vice President and General Manager for Public Sector Worldwide at Intel, will be talking with me, Vanessa Roberts, about the role of government IT in an increasingly complex world. Welcome, Tony and Cameron.
Thank you, Vanessa.
It's great to see both of you. Thanks so much for doing this today. So it's fairly well established that digital transformation might be every government organization's technology goal. But if the last 2 years have really taught us anything or taught federal leaders anything about managing during ongoing crises, nothing can happen without resiliency. Fresh off the depths of a global pandemic, agencies now are trying to figure out how their hybrid return is going to happen against a backdrop of geopolitical crisis. My hope is today's discussion will illuminate what that challenge means for agencies in delivering services, both internally and to citizens. So Tony, let's set the stage for our conversation a little bit. Could you briefly just share how InfraMicro, which has been helping its partners provide technology to the federal government for 2 decades, is bringing the power of technology to the public sector, particularly with its longstanding relationship with Intel?
Sure. Well, thank you, Vanessa. InfraMicro is a large global distributor and technology aggregator. And we've actually been helping innovative technology providers like Intel bring its offerings to the federal government for actually more than 4 decades. We're an extension of the OEM sales and technical resources. We extend their reach by tailoring solutions to securely meet the unique and complex requirements of the government's missions. We help train, support, and enable the government prime contracting community from the exceedingly small reseller partners to the very large global systems integrators. We do so by providing advanced logistics, inventory, financing, integration, asset disposition services, demand gen, acquisition, and tech support services. In a nutshell, InfraMicro Public Sector is a one-stop shop focused on securely enabling the digital transformation of government.
So Cameron, from your perspective, could you add a little bit about how the partnership that you have with InfraMicro really benefits the missions and programs across government?
Absolutely. You know, Tony did a brilliant job, Vanessa, and I want to underscore a couple of things that were either implied but also explicit in this commentary. Is the last mile, when we look at the mission segment of the mission space, is literally the most critical element that all mission people, whether you're a civil servant, you're a war fighter in the DoD or defense space, or an operator in the community. As Tony mentioned, it is a community. We build a community worldwide to be able to do this. The logistics that Ingram provides, the power of how quickly we can get things around the world for the mission is extraordinary. And being that extension for companies like Intel and the communities that we serve and the ecosystem we build is extraordinarily powerful. When you are at the tip of a spear, whether you are, let's say, in a Department of State office somewhere around the world and you need access to information to understand what's happening, especially in these geopolitical times, the ecosystem and the reach that Intel and Ingram bring to the mission environment is extraordinary. And it is that global reach that in these times, as we've seen, has a profound impact to be able to respond as quickly as we need for mission relevance. So it's extremely critical, that last mile capability, and to have that global extension and reach is just extraordinary.
Well, as you mentioned, we're talking today at a time when there's been are overlapping crises. We're coming out of a global pandemic with agencies beginning their return to offices. There's a geopolitical crisis and a war underway in Eastern Europe. How do you advise agencies meet their missions while dealing with the continuing challenges of supply chain threats? That's a continuing problem that's kind of just been constant concern for agencies. Could you talk to that, Cameron?
Sure. As you know, we've been at the forefront of the constraint and the challenges in supply because of the critical nature and role we play. And it's been difficult without question. When I look at what agencies can try and do, public-private relationships matter, and information is critical, especially during these types of times. And communication and collaboration is vital. I'd say offering up the opportunity to give us glimpse into a forecast of where the government believes they may need to acquire certain aspects of technology. It allows companies like Ingram and Intel to invest together. We can pre-stage parts in certain areas of the world to try and help alleviate supply chain issues. We leverage the global reach that Ingram has and that delivery capability, plus the technical acumen that the company possesses, so that we can pre-stage in certain areas of the world to provide a just-in-time capability when the mission needs it the most. So I think really what's critical is the collaboration, the information sharing that's necessary, of being able to pre-stage in certain areas to try and anticipate those mission needs. We know very clearly that the mission is a very dynamic environment, but giving us insights into that type of capability, what this allows us is a healthy balance, leveraging the private sector in the exact way we need to do as a country, remain compliant with the FAR, but also keep in the spirit of our Constitution, but allow us to support our government, leverage our capital, our investments to be able to do that in a rapid fire manner for the mission.
Well, obviously what is crucial there is really that idea of continued resiliency. So given that, Tony, how should agencies be reimagining their operations, more hybrid, more multi-cloud, while also properly addressing risk management?
Thanks, Vanessa. Cameron's comments were spot on, and I actually have spent the last couple of weeks at conferences with both government executives and industry participation. First, NASA SOUP sponsored a supply chain risk management conference where I was actually honored to be an industry panelist. And then the Coalition for Government Procurement's spring training conference just took place. And supply chain was a major topic, and resiliency and security were very common themes. There's going to be continued emphasis on these specific requirements for both security and supply chain. And there's going to be increased value assigned to addressing them in industry. So that's good, because that's the federal government's recognition that costs are involved. The industry recommendations, included the government increased communication and collaboration. So they want to see a tighter public-private partnership around this with industry. And then industry also recommended that the federal government has to look more deeply into the impacts and the costs associated. So they've got to go past their prime contracting community, through the channels, into distribution, all the way back into the OEMs, and then look at all of the components that are involved in building those solutions. So from a technological perspective, the government needs to encourage more innovation through competition. It needs to continue to adopt and leverage open standards that have multiple solutions and sources for those solutions. This doesn't necessarily mean standardizing on any brand, but rather robust, diverse solution sets that solve the same problem. This is where a distributor like InfraMicro becomes enormously powerful and beneficial to the prime contracting community, and in turn, the federal government. Our partner Intel is also playing, a key role here, being more focused and bringing more work back on our shores, and ensuring that its technology is available across multiple brands, and plays in the transformation solutions from cloud, hyperconverged, 5G, and most importantly, cybersecurity.
Is there anything you wanted to add there, Cameron?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Tony really hit on the key of all of this. And it is extraordinary in the acquisition cycle. You know, our acquisition community, Tony and I talk about this often. It's one of the most difficult jobs that you can possibly have in the government outside of being, you know, an active participant in the mission. But it's imperative here, or the imperative of acquisition is to also be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. So to Tony's point, being able to blend and give the private sector the opportunity to have as a competitive differentiator our resiliency, the preparedness we put into how we pre-stage technology and products, as Tony had mentioned, really needs to enter into that conversation. And first and foremost, the bedrock around cybersecurity. You know, Tony talked a lot about cyber, and he and I are kindred spirits on this topic. When we talk about cyber, it's quite fascinating. Tony and I share the same viewpoint. It happens far before implementation or operationalizing these technologies. The secure processes that Ingram uses to move and transit technology around the world, you know, prevent from gray market injection, all these things are unique and specialized that allow us to deliver technology safely and securely to the government. So I think that recognition of the combination of the delivery, but with acquisition, and being able to bring more acquisition requirements that give you benefit to operating at that more secure level will absolutely benefit the government as we move forward.
I definitely want to come back to a couple of things that came up during that last discussion, cybersecurity being one of them, and also 5G. But so let's hold on to that thought. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with InfraMicro's Tony Celesti and Intel's Cameron Sherry after a quick break. This is Federal News Network, and I'm Vanessa Roberts.